Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us at the Microsoft Power BI UK user group. I'm your host Leon Gordon, and we're back with another fantastic chance to come together and learn more about Power BI as a community. I'd like to introduce my co-host as well, Pragati Jain.
Hey everyone, welcome to our today's another amazing session. So hopefully everyone enjoys it.
Excellent. Pragati, we've got another, well, we've just referred to this as potential carnage before, so it's a great way to start to look to introduce today's session, especially on what has been a wet day in the UK, a typical British summer, some might say.
Yeah, I think it literally rained for first half of the day. So yeah, at
Exactly.
least we have got some less humid weather and less hot weather now. So hopefully it
Ex-
stays that way.
Exactly, on our way towards winter. With that being said, as always, please do let us know where you're joining us from. Hopefully, some of you are in more hot continents at the moment, as opposed to us in the UK. So please do let us know on that chat where you're joining us from. We want this to be a fantastically interactive session, so please do feel free to ask questions throughout, and you can do so via the chat, whereby myself and Pragati will be moderating. So with that being said, I just want to give a brief introduction to our speakers today, fellow MVPs. So we're going to have a look at accessibility meets Power BI with Laura Graham-Brown and Mike Hartley. So Mike is a business applications MVP with a passion for accessibility. He has many years, which we've redacted within IT, and he's done all of the jobs imaginable within that time. You can find him online at Heart of Midlands, where he sometimes does blogs and video blogs as well. Laura is a data platform MVP and the awesome Hat Full of Data, where she uses her knowledge of Power BI and its quirks, which far exceeds the capacity of her amazing headwear, some of which I'm not too sure if it's on show or not this evening. As always, online you can find her blogging away and producing YouTube videos, and also very active within the Power BI community, answering questions and helping people along their way. So let's just add Mike and Laura into the stream. Thank you very much for joining.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome. Good evening.
An absolute pleasure to have you
No
both
hats.
with us.
It doesn't work with the headset.
Oh, I'm gutted. I'm heartbroken, Laura.
I need to get a hat that fits on head.
Maybe when there's a logical breaking point, we can remove the headset and put a hat on.
While Mike's speaking, I'll go find some hats.
Oh yeah, you don't want to hear me speak.
We did say there's going to be some carnage, so we're looking forward to it. But no, thank you very much for both joining us this evening. We'll let you guys continue with your session, so we'll just jump off of screen and allow you to share your screens.
Cool. Okay. Right, there we go. So, hi everyone, and thanks for joining us, and thank you, more importantly, for having us. Yeah, you are with us for When Worlds Collide, Accessibility and Power BI, and I will be honest, this is my first foray into Power BI, and it's also the first time that Laura and I have co-presented together. We know each other quite well, and yeah, it's going to be entertaining because we bounce off each other quite a lot. So, coming up for you, woohoo! We have me doing some quick accessibility 101, just really kind of the fundamentals of what accessibility is, what it means, all that stuff. Couple of quick wins for everyday life to get you started down the road, and then handing over to Laura to give you Power BI accessibility, warts and all. We'll be highlighting what's good and also kind of saying, yeah, okay, this could be better, or this is a bit clunky. There is Q&A, hopefully at the end, assuming we don't waffle too much, but please just ask questions at any time. We'd rather have this as a conversation than a lecture. So if you've got burning questions and we end up ditching what we've got planned to talk about this stuff, we'd much rather do that than just go through this info. So yeah, just interrupt, just post, and we will go off on any tangent as long as it's about accessibility and Power BI. So yeah, Laura, a quick headline. Do you want to introduce yourself, Laura? I mean, we've already had
Yeah.
that intro.
Sure. I've been working with data for way too long. Data scientist before that was the thing. So I am not a data scientist in as much as knowing R and some of the wonderful data science things that are out there, but I have been playing with data for way too long. To show my time, I remember Excel 4. Okay, Excel 4 macros a long time ago, and my career can be summarized in one sentence. Laura, we have this reporting process that takes X number of hours that we do every week, every month, every year, whatever. It takes too long. Give us a button. That summarizes me. And that's what I've been doing. My blog and my YouTube are my way of writing down how I fixed something so that I can remember how to fix it next time. Which I think is that's why I blog. Is so that I write notes in one place and I can find them later. So if anybody else benefits from it, great, brilliant. But actually, it's purely for me. Back
That's
to
why
you,
we
Mike.
all do it. That's why we all do it.
Yeah, we just don't tell
Incidentally,
anybody that.
the QR code on the screen will take you to Laura's blog. So, yeah, you can scan that, but the links will be posted in the chat during the talk as well. So, and Laura, I remember the good old days of Lotus 123 in DOS.
Oh yes.
All of the double slash commands and everything else. So
Yep.
yeah,
They still work in Excel.
I know they do. It's awesome. It's awesome. Every now and then I crack them out just to see if I can remember. But anyway, tangent, my dear, tangent.
Yeah. No squirrels.
Oh, plenty out my window, so I have closed my blinds. Bit about me, yeah, yeah, 30-ish years in the IT industry, and yeah, all those job titles and others along the way. I've been a Dynamics CRM guy since version 3, and I'm kind of still Dynamics and Power Platform. Yeah, I'm one of those Power Apps, Power Automate kind of guys who never touches Power BI, so I come in full repentance mode. But I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn. This is my penance. This is me stepping forth. I am really passionate about mental health, accessibility, community, diversity, inclusion, and things like that. I will scream it from the rooftops about all these things. So, yeah. And I am the founder and co-host of a podcast, The Things We Don't Talk About. Haven't recorded any new episodes for a while, but that kind of ties back into my own personal mental health and accessibility. And oh, I didn't put my QR code up. There you go. You can find me on those links, and as I say, they'll be posted throughout, and I'm fairly easy to find. So, and yeah. So let's crack on because I don't want to waste time. So thinking about accessibility, the first thing we have to do is say, well, when we think accessibility, the first thing we think of is disability. And what is disability? Because that's kind of quite a core question. You've got your physical. That's the first thing that will spring to people's mind, that image of a person in a wheelchair. If you say disability and say the first thing, tell people to give you the first thing that crops into their mind, it will be that image or a physical thing. But you've got your others, you've got your visual, your verbal, and your auditory. So you're deaf, dumb, blind, as it kind of used to be called. That rolls off the tongue, but terms really we kind of not use is dumb because that has connotations, but it rolls off the tongue, unfortunately, because that's my age. Deaf, non-speaking, and non-hearing, non-seeing. Yeah, there's lots of terms. You've got your cognitive disabilities, the things that affect the mind, the brain. And surprisingly, For all of the work I have spent doing around this topic for 15 years now, I only learnt this year that mental health is a registered disability. I never knew it was a disability, and it blew my mind when I found out that my two worlds that I had spent so long working in actually collided. How on earth that had gone underneath my radar, I have no idea, but it really did kind of throw me. But let's have some numbers. I mean, data people, Power BI, it's all about data. So let's give you some data. 1 in 5 working age adults in the UK have a registered disability. That word is key. Globally, there are over 1 billion people registered as disabled. There are countries that do not release any statistics around this. You can probably imagine which countries they are. And they're fairly sizable countries. So that number is bigger than that. 70% of disabilities are hidden. That includes the ones that you cannot actually see because they're not visible, but also the ones that people go out of their way to hide and to mask because of stigma, shame, and not wanting to be a burden, all the kind of things you can imagine. And some you probably can't, to be honest. And when we think about mental health, 1 in 4 people will experience mental health issues at some point in their life. And for some, it is a permanent thing. My mental health issues, which I will talk about freely, and I warn you, I will talk very bluntly if you ask me questions. Mine's permanent. I've had it for 15 years and it ain't going anywhere. We're waiting for latest official statistics, but because of COVID, it is estimated that 50% of the UK population during COVID experienced mental health trauma and difficulties and issues and challenges and struggles and whatever words you want to use. And I think if we all think back to how lockdown was, we can probably all think, yeah, actually, I can well believe that. Only 50%, really. Hidden disabilities. I said about registered disabilities. And I have this thing. I only got it this year. It's a hidden disabilities lanyard and badge. Because there are lots of disabilities that are hidden and there are lots that are not registered. I am disabled, but I'm not registered disabled because I've resisted the doctors registering me because I carried stigma, and I still do. I've acknowledged that I've got disabilities. I haven't yet accepted it, even though I've kind of had them for a long time. And that's not just my mental health, there's physical stuff and all weird. Yeah. But there's a lot of hidden disabilities that we don't know about. If we can remember what it was like working in offices. Yeah, go for it, Laura.
But that's almost one of the silver linings that has come out of COVID, because the lanyards became more understanding, because people understood that person isn't wearing a mask because they've got a disability. So that was one of the nice, the few, admittedly, but of positive aspects that came out. I'd never seen a sunflower lanyard until COVID till lockdown, and people were wearing them because they couldn't wear the masks.
Yes, same here. Same here. And for all of what we see as COVID as being an issue, in many ways for disabled people, it leveled the playing field in a lot of key areas because disability wasn't visible. You could be on the end of a Teams call, on the end of a Zoom call, and even if you had your camera on, if you were in a wheelchair, nobody knew it because they can't see your wheelchair and things like that. And they can't see if you're using accessibility aids on your screen and things. But you see, that's the kind of thing about this. If we think back to officers, remember those. You think that 1 in 4 people working age in the UK has a registered disability. There are more who are not registered. Me, for example. That means that, let's say, a third of the people you work with will have a disability of some form. And there's a fair chance that they will be using accessibility tools. And there's a fair chance that you never know about it. You never notice it. You never pick up on it. You never see it because you kind of don't see it. It's hidden. It's kept out of sight. If I were to share my screens the way that they truly are, you would see me looking like Donald Trump because I would be reflected in a real orange glow because I have heavy yellow filters on my screen to stop me getting migraine headaches. A friend of mine, Laura, you know who I'm talking about, they have their screen filters set even more intensely than I do, which kind of throws me because I have mine really. Screen readers, magnification tools.
There's a good comment in the chat from Adam. Tend to use non-visible or non-apparent. Oh, that's clever. The non-visible and non-apparent disability rather than hidden, which I think is a great one because the hidden implies that you're ashamed of it, you're hiding it, you're masking it.
Yeah,
so that I quite like.
Yeah, I like that. I deliberately use the word hidden, admittedly, because it kind of covers all the bases. It's one of those things where there's a lot of language you can use with disability and accessibility that some people will say, well, you should say this. Color blindness, for example, I learned in the past year, the actual proper name for it is colour vision deficiency, which is really difficult for me to say because I've got major dental work going on.
Long words.
But colour vision deficiency, if I say that to somebody, they're like, you what? And I have to say, oh, colour blindness. And they're like, oh, that makes sense, actually. But until you explain it, they don't know. So I do use non-visible, and I love the fact that in a lot of places you're starting to see things on disabled toilets. Not every disability is visible, and things like that. So yeah, non-visible and hidden, they're two sides of a coin because yeah, some people do deliberately hide it. I have done. Now I'm kind of old enough and ugly enough that I just kind of come out and just say, here's me, deal with it. So yeah, but it's really good point. Thank you for that. Accessibility, dictionary definition of it is the ability to access and benefit from a system or entity. It's a mouthful, but hey, there we go. What it means is and I have an acronym here if you can work it out when you see this, because this is my breakdown. If we think physical, it's ease of access, it's accommodation for disabilities, ramps, lifts, handrails in toilets, things like that. Intellectual accessibility, the use of language. I mean, we work in quite technical spheres. We deal with complex concepts quite often, but we can also be talking to users who know how to click a mouse button and know how to order off Amazon. So the use of language is an accessibility thing. Explanations, descriptions, jargon busting. It opens up intellectual accessibility. You've then got electronic accessibility. We think of our user experience design, and UX has really kind of come to the fore in recent years. And what's really good is UX is now starting to include accessibility more and more, which I'm loving seeing. But you think about navigation methods. I will often try navigating using the keyboard instead of the mouse. I joked about remembering Lotus 1, 2, 3. I also remember WordStar and WordPerfect and the keyboard shortcuts there, some of which still work in Word. But I used to be a keyboard jockey. We didn't have mice. So for me, navigating by keyboard is often quicker. Sorry?
You're expensive.
Mm.
One of my first jobs was fitting mouse boards.
Yeah. Crazy. So for me, navigating by keyboard is second nature, but it's surprising how difficult it's got over the years. But if somebody can't use a mouse, then how do they navigate what we do? And the use of colors and images. I mentioned color vision deficiency. The most common one that people think of is red-green color blindness. There are other ones, and we can simulate those. We can test color contrast levels and things. So, and then we have our final one, which is sensory. And that's things like, can you touch things? Microsoft, they released, he says, looking for it. Where did I put it? Here it is. They released a couple of years back for the Xbox, the adaptive controller. And seriously, Google the adaptive controller Super Bowl advert and make sure you have got tissues to hand, because you will cry if you've not seen it. It makes me cry every time. Nice piece of kit. It allows people with all kinds of abilities and disabilities to play games and use the Xbox. September last year, because the adaptive controller's expensive because it's hardware. September last year, they announced the Microsoft Surface adaptive kit. You think, well, Microsoft Surface, that's expensive. This is a pack of stickers. And what it is it's designed where they're tactile, so you can feel things. I have fine motor control issues, and I can lose sensation in my fingertips. So I need more pronounced feel on some of my keys. It's things like that we need to think about with sensory. Can we use things? Can we interface with things in different ways? If I can't see, can I hear what is being presented to me? So do screen readers work with it? If I can see but I can't hear, are there subtitles? Which incidentally, I'm using the Microsoft PowerPoint built-in subtitles because I have it on by default. So it might not pick Laura up because it's coming through my microphone. So forgive me if they don't all come through. But anyway, it's not that you're not important, my dear, but I can't pipe you through my microphone without getting feedback.
It's fine. Sadly, I won't have it when I'm doing my demo. That's fine. You keep going.
That's fine. That's fine. Yes, the adaptive controller did have accessible packaging. Ironically, the Surface Accessibility Kit or adaptive kit isn't really accessible in terms of getting into it because the glue they put to open the pack was really, really difficult to open. But yes, the adaptive controller, it's so good, really is. When we're thinking about accessibility, the best thing to do is get it up front, foundation, get it in there straight at the beginning. It doesn't cost anything to do. It just requires planning. You're using standard tools and new habits. Yeah, time-wise, takes a little bit longer because you just have to think. Has an initial impact while you learn new habits, but once you've learned them, they're second nature. It's not complex to implement. You've just got to think a bit differently. It's small changes and it's about progress. And then if you deal with UK government, local government websites or government websites or anything like that, there are legal implications because all government websites have to be accessible. And so do the documentation they produce and things like that. And that's only going to spread out further. There's already talk of making businesses have accessible, compliant websites and things like that. So there are things, if you get it up front, if you think about it up front, it doesn't impact timescale. It doesn't impact cost. And the UX Collective said it this way: accessibility shouldn't be considered a barrier. Designing with all people in mind doesn't hold you back, but rather forces you to make the experience better for everyone. And that's the curb cut effect. The dropped curbs that we have at traffic lights and crossings and what have you, they were designed for wheelchairs, but they're used by people pushing pushchairs or shopping trolleys. 80% of people who use closed captions or subtitles are not deaf. That's an Ofcom study that was done. You think about bars, gyms, bedrooms, and more. I have subtitles on. They actually help me concentrate on what's going on in the program. So
A lot of youngsters have the one nowadays, don't they?
Sorry?
A lot of youngsters have subtitles on because they're looking at lots of things, but they used a lot more than I've seen other people use them.
It's really interesting because my eldest lad is dyslexic, and his way of combating that is to hit himself over the head with it. And he and his brother watch a lot of anime in the original Japanese or Korean. They do not like dubs, so they watch it with subtitles on.
Yeah.
And
which in some ways is an accessibility, accessing something that's not in your language. Same thing.
Exactly. But as a result of him doing that, his reading comprehension, he still has dyslexia. That hasn't gone away. but he's managed to get his brain wired in such a way that he has coping mechanisms in place. His younger brother doesn't have dyslexia, but his reading, he can read a lot faster because he's watching these videos, and they watch them at faster speeds because they want to watch more. Yeah. So I told you I'd give you some very quick real world things that you can get started with without thinking about Power BI. The first one is really dead simple, and that screenshot says it all on the phone. If you're using hashtags or writing out URLs, capitalize the first letter of each word. It makes it easier for people with dyslexia to be able to separate the words. It makes it easier for people without dyslexia to separate the words. I've seen some huge hashtags, and my wife and I have looked at them on telly and gone, what the heck does that say? And then you've got the Susan Boyle album party that went viral and things like that. But it also helps people using screen readers, because the capital letters signify the start of a new word, which means a screen reader knows where to break it up and can read it properly. If you try running some hashtags and web addresses through screen readers without capital letters, you get some really quite grim results and some that are really definitely not suitable for work. So that one was the first thing that I did. A friend challenged me to do that. It took me 2 weeks of thinking about it every time I put a hashtag in, just to get in the habit. And in the nearly 3 years since, I have missed it less than a handful of times in all of my social posts on LinkedIn, Twitter, and what have you. And the occasions I have been when I have been replying to somebody in a very quick hurry, usually because I'm knocked at something they've said, so I shouldn't reply in anger, kind of thing. But hey, it doesn't take long to learn to remember to capitalize the first letter. We do it when we're writing Word documents out or what have you. We start sentences. Yes. Yeah. Don't use garbage abbreviations or laziness. 100%. 100%. Some of the messages I've seen have just been like, yeah, no, please just don't. Office has got an accessibility checker built into it. Some people don't know it exists because it's kind of semi-hidden. It is going to be switched on by default, depends kind of where you are in the release cycle. But even so, it's still kind of hidden on the bottom status bar. But it has grown and grown and grown in terms of its capabilities, and it is invaluable. This slide deck, I made sure the slides in here that I put in, I don't know if you did, Laura, so I'll check later.
I've just realised that. I've just realised I haven't. But by the time you check, they'll be fine.
Yeah. All of the slides I put in are fully accessible. Alt text on images, so that screen readers that can't tell you what's in an image by looking at the image can actually tell you because there's a text description. Things like color contrast it will pick up. And again, it's just habit forming. And then once you've kind of got the hashtag thing done and you're using Office Accessibility Checker, try out accessibility tools for yourself to get a feel for what it's like to use them. Use narrator in Windows to try and hear what gets described on screen. Try using keyboard navigation, the tab key and the cursor keys and everything else. And again, in Windows, there are lots of different color filters and color modes you can apply to show you how this ought to be, to cater for color vision deficiencies. So they shift the color palette so they are colorblind friendly, or that you've got the yellow filter to filter out blue light, which is a good thing to do anyway, but does help with the old migraines and the like. So try those things out and get started down that road. The key is, though, it's about progress over perfection. I'm going to give you some slogans, because everything's got to have slogans. I'd have these as stickers if I could, that I'd give you all, but we're virtual, so I can't. Progress over perfection. If you take one step, if you start capitalizing the first letter of each word in hashtags and web addresses, it might sound something really, really small, but it could be something that your competitors aren't doing. And it sets you apart. It puts you one step further on the journey. And then once you've done that, and then you move on to doing the Office Accessibility Checker, it moves you a second step on. And then you move a third step and a fourth step and a fifth step. And all of a sudden you are miles way further on from where you were. So you're never going to get it perfect. That is one thing I will say front and center. There is nothing that is 100% accessible, because what you make accessible for one person could be inaccessible for somebody else. It's just the nature of it. Disabilities are unique. One size fits one. There's no one size fits all approach. It doesn't happen. What you have to do is cater for your audience and go, okay, let's have the conversations. Let's talk about this. Let's be open about this and say, how should we try best to suit the audience? And that's kind of really the most important slogan of all, is not about us, without us. The worst form of ableism is for people to just kind of think, yeah, you know what? I'm going to make everything accessible because I know what needs to be done, without ever talking to a person with disabilities. It winds disabled people up immensely, because unless you've lived it, you don't know it. And every disability is different, and every person's disability is different. You're not going to be able to cater for them all. But progress over perfection, have those conversations, talk to people. So anyway, I've waffled way too long. You should have shut me up, Laura. I've just seen what the time is. Why didn't you slap me? Right. Laura.
See, if I'm presenting, I have a slide, and I didn't think I could do this slide because my favorite slide says, "Shut up, Laura. It's demo time." And I thought having a slide that says, "Shut up, Mike. It's demo time," he might get upset. So no.
You should have done. I'm shutting up now.
No,
just
fine.
tell me when you want next slide.
No, I am going. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to answer one quick question in chat, which has nothing to do with the topic. No, I don't play the cello. It's not a cello behind me. It's a double bass. And Ash, one of my children, plays a double bass and the double bass has come home. They've gone away back to uni, but hey, the double bass stayed here. It's a good backdrop. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show some of the things that Mike has been talking about, because when Mike said, let's do this session, it was kind of, yeah, sure, fine. And then I went and looked. So I followed Mike's advice and I actually did some of the things. So please don't judge me on my report. It is a very basic, simple report. But I am hoping, there we go, there's my screen. So this is a really simple report. It's a 2-table report. I've got a calendar and a sales table. That's it. Okay, so nothing exciting here. But I found some things out. So let's go. So the accessibility one that we all think of, okay, whenever we're talking about accessibility and making it more accessible for more people, etc., is dealing with colors. So is that pink too close to that orange? By the way, I have just gone with Power BI out the box branding. I haven't fixed this branding to work. So what are the options here? So one of the things Mike suggested was looking at some of the accessibility tools. And I'm running Windows 11 here. You can tell corners have been rounded. That's fast worked up, but also there's a lot more accessibility stuff in here. Microsoft have picked up on things. So if I come down to color filters here, we can, I'm just going to move it over here so we can see kind of the effect on this tree map over here. You've got a whole bunch of color filters. Let's make this window a little bit bigger. And I can bring them in. So on my color filters here, there is the red-green one that that actually a lot of men go for. And so we can go through these ones and we can look.
Annoyingly, Laura,
Actually,
StreamYard is not showing the color filters on screen sharing.
yes, it is.
No, we're not seeing the effects.
Are you seeing the effect in this window?
No. We're seeing it exactly as it is originally.
That's a shame, because where I'm seeing the screen shared in there is okay, fine. Go find the accessibility screen color filters and play with it. It's worth doing on your reports. So I'm going to come back into a comment in chat. If you can highlight whoever's highlighting the chat for me, Scott Gilchrist one. Too many visualizations on a page, too much noise. Okay, too much. And actually, forget this about accessibility for this is accessibility for everyone. If there's too much noise on the page, your message is lost. And for somebody who is struggling to read the screen, that's even worse. So really good point, Scott. Really like it. So I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So let's say we're not running Windows 11. We're running another one, but we're in a browser. In the browser, up the top here in the corner, there is a view button there. And we can do a number of things by going full screen, etc. But there's a high contrast colors, which I have to admit, I find revolting looking. But hey, I'm sure they work for some people. And hey, this isn't aimed at me. So high contrast 1. There we go. Do you get to see that?
Yeah, that works.
Changed for you guys? And actually, there's a whole bunch in here to be able to go and see how they look. And this will work for some people. This will be actually really useful for them. But be aware, there's things like my graphic I've got down in the corner here doesn't quite fit, doesn't quite suit the thing. It's not a proper transparent background, etc. But we've got the whole bunch in there, and they are worth looking at. Does your report work if somebody's gone for this? Okay, or are you relying on people seeing the colors? So that's a conversation to have, and that's to go and find the people. Going back to the nothing about us without us. Go back to that. Go talk to your people who are doing it. And by the way, they are. So my husband, back when before he had treatment for it, he would always have screens like this with black backgrounds because he couldn't cope with the white screen. It was too bright. He has keratoconus, which you wouldn't know about apart from the fact that he's almost blind without his contact lenses. So you just got to work out, that would be just horrific for him. I think it still would be, actually. But let's take those off for a second.
Interestingly,
So
I know somebody who can't use dark mode because dark mode for them, everything just swims together into the center of the screen and they cannot see anything. So for them, they have to have light mode because they've got some blindness, cortical blindness, cognitive blindness. I can't remember the wording.
For different people, it will be different things. So for some people, this a whole batch of text is just really hard to read, and for other people, this for an accountant I know really well, a chart means absolutely nothing to them. They just cannot get into their head what a chart means. They need to see numbers, and they just can't do it. And so I've always made sure for their reports, I always give them a table version. But teach people about how to use some of these things on these visuals. So I'm just going to show you some of the obvious ones, and then I'll show you some other things that I learnt. If somebody's finding a busy screen, so they don't like the busy screen, we'll come to tooltips in a second. There is a button up here, as long as you let them have these buttons, focus mode, so that they can focus on one thing at a time, and that helps some people. Another one, tooltips, but they seem a great idea. But if you have problems moving your mouse about, they're a bit of a challenge, except I found out how to get them. So then I thought, well, so then Mike said to me, he said, and of course we'll cover not using a mouse. And I'm thinking, yeah, we'll cover not using a mouse. You what, Mike? And so then I sort of found that actually on a Power BI screen, if you press the tab button, it'll tab you around the screen. Okay. And escape will take you back out a level. Okay. So if I tab from this level, it tabs me. And the first tab, so if you're right at the top level, your first tab is a show keyboard shortcuts. And these and some reader tips. We'll come to those in a second. Mike, don't scream. The keyboard shortcuts, I think, is a really good one. And I did not realize that these shortcuts existed. Okay. So I'll just see the comment about Power BI Desktop now has dark mode. No, Fernando, it doesn't have dark mode. That would be helpful. But in here we've got a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts, okay? And there are some ones about how to navigate around the screen. And interestingly, you don't have to do that tab for it to come up. If you just press question mark, it comes up. Okay, so that's a nice one. I really like that one.
Ooh.
So if I'm tabbing around this screen, so tabbing around my report, okay, I can press enter to go into the report. So there we are. I'm going up and down my slicer there, and I can press spacebar or return to do the filter. For those that use the control, I can use control and enter to pick multiples, but weirdly that's taken me out of the screen. So let's get back into there. So I can do those parts, and inside there I can also move to the clear selections as well, so we can navigate around that. Let's escape out of that one for a second, and let's go to here. While I've got this, and then I can press enter to go into that chart, and then I can press enter again to pick a column. I can then press Control H to show my tooltip. Okay, so there are ways of doing this which now shows me how I should do screen grabs of tooltips. There's ways of getting this information, but it's all keyboard shortcuts. People have got to understand them. And going back to too many visuals, imagine tabbing through 32 of these cards. Oh, and yes, I've seen a screen with at least 20 of these on, and it wasn't done as a demo. It was a serious report. So there are a number of ways of doing this part. Drilling down is, so in there, if I press enter, I'm hoping I can tab around. No, I can't. I haven't worked out, and I think it's possibly because I just haven't worked out the keystrokes of how to get to the drill down buttons at the top here. Okay, so there's some drill down buttons up here, which, if you know Power BI, can drill you down to the visual for the month, etc. That's broken my tooltip, hasn't it? And be able to drill up again. I haven't worked out how to get to these reliably. Okay. So then I thought, well, okay, fine. So I've managed to do a little bit about navigating, a little bit about colors. So okay, so those parts. So the next obvious one is what, Mike?
Screen reader?
Screen reader. Yeah, screen reader. Okay. So I'm in Edge. Okay. So I started with Edge because I thought that was a good idea. You won't be able to hear it, so I'm not going to make it do it. But up in here, there is a read aloud. Don't. Okay. What it does is it will read page 1, page 2, but not go to page 2. It'll read page 2, and then it'll go File, Export, and I'll just read the whole screen. And when it gets to this chart, it will go and read the title, and then it'll go pound 0K, pound 20K, as it's reading up this column, because that's what it does. Okay, so that just seemed extreme. So I'm thinking that cannot be what Mike meant, because that's just horrific. And this read aloud is brilliant if you've got a page full of text. It's great. It reads it out and it does fine. So if you're having to go through those long reports that you're having to read, this is one way to do it. Okay. So then I went, well, okay, let's do the narrator. So I went in and did narrator. So for this one here, and I've got a slide in a minute to show you, but for this one here, it would read sales value, pound 404K, group. Why it's a group, I have no idea. This one here, it reads a little differently. So it reads sales value by year, and then actually what it reads out is Mike is amazing. And then it says group. The reason it says Mike is amazing is because if I bring in Power BI, so this is the report in Power BI. And then over in so if you select your visual, and then over in the format pane, so the painter there, I type in alt text. We can put in the value that's in there. Okay. So what we could put in to here, so let me, we've got an FX in there as well, which means it could be calculated.
I was just going to say you've got FX in there, which is impressive.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things in here. So what you could have in here is, I am going to work out a quick, I'm going to put, so what I could do in there is I could create a new measure. And if you're blind like me, which is just pure to age, okay, I can't read small words, not blind, but just bad, poor eyesight. If you don't know it, control equals zooms in the text. So I could put into here chart alt text. I'm not going to correct my typing, will be here all day, and I realise we are running out of time because, hey, somebody let Laura do a demo.
Somebody let Mike speak first. Oh yeah, that was me.
Yeah, well, that was you. No, you did a great intro. You did a great intro. And I could also put into there. We could also put into there an actual calculation. Let's just do. I think I've got a thing in here. I have. I've got a sales value. Sales value. Okay, so I could put up a calculation like that, and then over here I press the FX button, and I can pick. And if I call them all something alt text or alt text something, you can find them easily. And then I can click OK. And now it would read out whatever the result of that is. So you can put alt text in there that makes some sense. Okay. Obviously, it's not going to read out the tooltip, but that would work. Okay. But it really is worth, especially if you have a report, if you have a large organization, a large organization with thousands of users, you have no idea, especially as they are all working from home, how many of them are using a screen reader, how many of them are tabbing their way around your report. You have no idea. And asking people, so I was involved in one organization that decided, well, you know, we'll ask people to tell us if they're doing it. And they turned and said, we've only had 5 people reply. We employ over 5,000 people. That it's obviously not a problem. And I went, it's more of a problem than you realize, because you obviously now have a culture where no one's willing to share it. And that just shows you've got 5 people who are brave. So assume there are people out there. And if you are lucky enough to find them, go and talk to them. Go and ask them about it. One trainer I worked with, and I realize we're coming to time, but one trainer I worked with, an amazing guy called Tim, who was a management trainer. He did amazing courses. He's in a wheelchair. And he would get asked to go into businesses to do management training, but also they'd turn around and go, Tim, can you do us a favor? We think we've got an accessible bathroom, but we have no idea whether it works. And sure enough, he's managed to get himself stuck in. He always takes a phone to a bathroom that he doesn't know, because a number of times he's been stuck inside a bathroom because he can't get out, because they've designed it that nobody's ever sat in a wheelchair and tried to do it. So actually go and find the people who are doing this if you have the chance. And if you don't have the chance, reach out to the community, because there are people in the tech community who will quite happily come in and test. I know a number of people who will do it for you. Yes, Adam, a really nice comment there from Adam about alt text is useful. Break a link to an image, you attain the text for everyone, especially if you've nicked an image from a site you don't own, and they remove it. So it's worth, it really, really is worth doing it. So it's, take your time, come and find people. I have no idea, Ishbel, whether it's being recorded or not, but I'm hoping we will be told. Please reach out to Mike and I. We are both quite happy to help you look at what you're trying to do and help you get your stuff to be more accessible. And if you are hitting the barrier with inside work of things like hashtags, and work decides that we're not going to capitalize things, come and talk to us. We are very good at finding the right articles for companies to go and read. Anything you want to add, Mike?
No. Honestly,
I'll left you with a minute.
Yeah. The one thing I will point out, alt text, Twitter have recently introduced, and you have to opt into it, but you can now enable it that whenever you post an image on Twitter, it will ask you for the alt text for that image. So it'll give you a prompt and it'll ask you to enter the alt text, which is invaluable again for people using screen readers and the like. And you can use a tweet might only be 240 characters long or whatever it is these days. The alt text can be 1,000 characters long. So yeah.
Oh.
You can do a lot. But no, thank you for having us. I hope there's been stuff here that has piqued your interest in accessibility, and even if you go away and just take that first step and start capitalizing words in hashtags and web addresses, it's that start of a journey, and that's kind of what this is all about. It's about us all taking that step on the journey. You look at how the Power Platform community has grown because we've all shared a passion and we've fed off each other's knowledge. If we all have that kind of attitude to accessibility, and you think of how much the Power Platform has exploded, if we do that same thing with accessibility, there's no limits.
It will be awesome.
It will.
It'll be awesome.
It will.
And it's
yeah.
And it's great to see people. It's great to see people here. Back to you, Leon. We didn't break anything.
Not yet. We still have some time. But let me be the first to say thank you for what was an absolutely amazing session. I'm just going to put into the chat. We always ask our audience for some feedback in terms of topics we can have in the future. How the session runs, etc. And also our audience would be very happy to hear that we have now gone to 1080p. It's cost us a few more pennies, but based on your feedback, this is actually our first 1080p stream today. So with that being said, I, for one, want to say that the topic of accessibility is not discussed enough, especially in report design. So thank you both, and kudos both for coming over and sharing this topic with us. Also outside of that, as you mentioned, Mike, and thank you for having the courage and strength to come and talk to the world today around some mental health topics as well. I don't think enough is said on the topic, and always do be kind is probably the best thing, the best one sentence I can say on that. Pragati, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I think this topic has been amazing, and I'm really, I mean, it's a great pleasure that you guys came to our user group and share this information, because I mean, when Mike talked about accessibility, I was like, oh, there are actually too many things, because I'm a report developer as well. I'm a analyst, right? And I myself sometimes ignore these kind of things, which can be really important from the user point of view. So thank you so much, Mike. I mean, showing those things, like, how we can actually bring those things into practice. And Laura, when you started showing those options in Power BI, because I have been working with Power BI for years now, and I was literally not using most of them. And when you just showed those things, I mean, it kind of really made sense. Like, I should really keep those things in mind, because sometimes I really don't know how my audience is going to be, right? So thank you so much for sharing that topic with us, because as Leon said, it's the topic not talked about much, right? So we need to be, talking about it more freely, and sharing with as much people we can, because this is kind of a very big topic that we need to make people aware of. So they take those kind of steps to deliver things when they are using, especially these kind of tools where people can have challenges accessing things, right? So yeah, thank you so much, because I myself learned a lot today. So thank you so much for presenting that for us.
Agreed. And I think that what would be a good idea as well, if you both feel okay with this, would be for us to have you back in the future and track the progress on this topic within the tools. It would definitely be good to take a look back retrospectively in X amount of months' time and see if there's actually been any more progress within the tools as well. Keep an eye on this.
Yeah, more than willing. Also, it'll show our journey and what we've learned about accessibility in Power BI as well, because we're learning all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we want to be able to hear people's stories of where they've hit struggles in Power BI, because one of the things is, as MVPs, we have an additional path into Microsoft to actually be able to push back some things and turn around and go, this doesn't work. And that there's certain people in Microsoft who we can turn around to and go, "Oi, this doesn't work," or "This should be better." So we want to hear the stories.
It's very
Yeah.
true, and they listen. So it's
Yeah,
a very
and they
good,
listen.
a very
That's
good
the-
Yeah,
point.
they do.
Very good
Yeah.
point. Excellent.
They always know when they see an email from me or they see me put my hand up in a call, it's like, oh, here we go. This is going to be about accessibility. So yeah,
But it makes a change. It's
Yeah.
definitely working towards a change. So no,
Yeah.
once again, thank you both for joining us this evening. We're just going to go ahead and close what has been today's session. So as I mentioned, we have put all of the links where you can follow both Laura and Mike within the chat. So please do make sure you do to stay on this journey. And we've also, as I mentioned previously, your feedback does really help us in terms of making sure, as we've gone to a weekly cadence with the Microsoft Power BI UK user group now. So really, we want to keep iterating and making sure that we're bringing you the content not only that you want, but also that you need on your Power BI journeys as well. So Laura, Mike, thank you once again.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
both of you. This was an amazing topic to hear about. So thanks so much for taking my time and presenting here.
Excellent. And Pragati, thank you very much again for joining me as today's co-host. As always, everybody, you've been here for the Microsoft Power BI UK user group in association even with Pomerol partners. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you've been here with us.
And thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And we look forward to hosting you next week with an amazing session again. So yeah, stay tuned and we'll see you next week.